Warhammer Fantasy Battles, but we're doing a map-based campaign, which is a bit redundant because remember, campaigning means marching. When we talk about Julius Caesar, the play, that's a series of scenes that are all strung together, and you have acts and you have scenes. But when we talk about the military adventures of Julius Caesar, we talk about the campaigns of Julius Caesar. Kind of like with D&D, how a campaign is all the fun stuff that happens between your home and the dungeon. But we're not talking about D&D today. That's for the How to Win at RPGs. Today we're talking about our Warhammer Fantasy Battles campaign in which the Broman Empire is attempting to stomp Castle Gallagher Flat. This is the home of the Vampire Lord Blanc. He is not one to take a good stomping laying down, at least during dark hours. Oh boy, that would have been interesting to have a campaign where the one side moves in the day and the other at night. But we're too deep into it for that. What we know is that the first real battle is going to take place right over here on the far eastern side of the Vampire Lord's kingdom, kind of near Jaycock Woods and they're Jaycock Woods. I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, the point is that the Bromans have Force Cherub, which is marching north along this road. And right here at this cemetery filled with zombies, they meet their opponent, Force Banquo, which is the Vampire Lords. But before I show you what the terrain looks like, I want to show you something else. It has taken me so long to go from the page to the tabletop with this campaign that I had time to paint up four, look at them, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of leaders. I mean, we would call these stands in most games. We've got drummers, we've got flag bannermen, and we've got champions. And I don't have these factored into the map-based campaign. These come from Splintered Light, and look, the banner carrier is even the skeleton of an orc. How fun is that? I got to figure out how to wrap them in. For today, I'm just going to throw one of these into the mix, and then probably what we'll do is we can either assign one to each of the thralls and just stipulate that the thralls have the ability to promote regular skeletons. So wherever there's a thrall, there will be a bannerman. That might be the easiest way to do it. Need a little more thought, but that's why if you see something new and weird that wasn't included in the roster, there you go. Oh, we also have, I remembered, I have these great-looking Death Knights from Alternative Armies. And these guys are going to serve as my thralls. Wait, we've only got 3. We're going to get rid of the one in the kilt. That gives us 3 thralls with 3 personalities. One of them has a magic shield, one of them has heavy armor, and one has a magic weapon. So let's figure out which is which. Dane has the heavy armor, so that makes this Dane. And we can use one figure to represent an actual individual character, almost like this was a D&D campaign. Campaigning is marching. If you're not doing travel time and random encounters on travel in your D&D, you're not playing D&D. But we're not talking D&D, we're playing Warhammer, so Thrall Couple Korinsky has the biting blade, and I guess since it's up high, that'll be Thrall Couple, and this guy over here on the far side will be Shmian. So we got Magic Shield. I gotta write this down. Or I should probably take pictures or something like that. Which one of these shields? I think the Skull Shield is probably the magic one. So we'll make him Pualton. We'll make him Smian, and we'll make this Korinsky. To figure out what our tabletop terrain is going to be, we take a look at the map and we find, well, we know that the Bromans are assaulting a cemetery, so we have a cemetery. And you can see we have a little fork in the road. Bear in mind, you know, 1 mile is like 1/4 of an inch on this map, so you can have a little, I guess this road shoots off and it probably takes a bend to the north pretty quick after it gets off the map. But this is still not a terribly well-constructed terrain. It's really still just your flat football field or soccer pitch or football pitch if you prefer. So the good news is I do have a deck of cards and a copy of William Sylvester's Solo Wargaming Guide. So what we can do is cut the deck, throw some cards down, and I believe it's the black cards will wind up being a terrain item. And I'm just I probably should have thrown these face down just so I didn't surprise myself. But just kind of throwing them down at random, and it looks like we've got plenty of terrain through the center portion of the table. And if we take a look on page number, it's actually fairly deep in the back of the book. Here we go. So we have 8, we got, wow, man, that might not have been too bad of a poker hand. We got, the Jack is going to be a farm, and maybe we'll do a ruined farm for that one. The 9 and 8 are woods, and we have a 10 as a marsh. And then what do we have? We have a 6. So we have a heavy woods, a light woods. And let me replace those. And through the magic of editing, you have got 2 stands of light terrain. I used smaller bases since they're light woods, just a couple of dead scraggly trees. Lichen shows you that the heavy forest over here on this side of the table is impassable, blocks line of sight. The ruins, of course, block line of sight. We're going to call that moving at half speed. Of course, we've got a barricade here, and then we've got a marsh, which is impassable but does not block line of sight, does not provide cover. Kind of an interesting table. A lot of terrain in the center. Looks like our deployment zones. Remember, our Bromans are going to be deploying from this direction, and our Force Banquo. All right, so this is going to be a little bit interesting because Force Banquo has already been here for a day, so they can set up however they want. In fact, that's what we're going to do. We'll set up the defenders first, and then we'll put our attackers on the table. The Necromancer drops himself right in the stone wall. He wants as much protection as he can get. He puts his 16 zombies and his 28 skeletons on his right, or I'm just going to refer to left and right from your perspective. The dire wolves are immediately behind. They're ready to sweep around to either side to support whichever side there is. And then we've got 3 bats. They're skirmishers. I only have 2 stands of bats. So my last one, I got to use this winged monster. It's a Quetzalcoatl. That'll be the first casualty we suffer. They do fly 10 inches, right? Normally 20. They count as skirmishers. So we have the ability to slow things down over on this side. Seeing that, now remember that this is not a fair fight. But we're not playing a single fight, we're playing a campaign game. The goal of the Necromancer is to do as much damage as possible, do as many casualties as he can, and then get out of there. He can replace his skeletons and zombies. He cannot replace the dire wolves. Well, he kind of can, but replacing the dire wolves and bats follows a similar process for the humans replacing their flesh and blood casualties. Basically, half of the casualties will die, half will be out for a week. You can do, or the other way to do it is to make a third are death, a third are out a week, and a third are available for the next battle. In fact, that may be a better way to do that to prolong the campaign. But the more survivors you have, the more it benefits the Broman Empire. The Bromans say, okay, you know what? We are going to leave our shooters over here on our left, and we're just going to shoot these guys to ribbons. We want to try to quash this as fast as possible. The Bromans want to do as many casualties as they can because they know that they're going to be facing reinforcements throughout. They do want to preserve the heavy hitters, these knights. They do want to preserve, but they have, I think these spearmen, these are where they can afford the casualties the most because obviously they have the most of them. Now they do have a battle wizard, and to show you one of the ways that I'm trying to keep track of this ferocious amount of information, I made up 3x5 cards for spearmen, swordsmen, and archers. Now, I don't have any swordsmen, so that one's a little bit superfluous. I do have a special card for Captain Legan Manstill. Now, he is not mounted. He is a hero on foot. I have the battle wizard Neil Graham, and then I have now they're Knights of the Wolf, but for us we call them the Knights of the Lamb, and they are on this card. Likewise, for the Necromancer's forces, or I should say the Vampire Lord's forces, but I forgot, and even in the last episode I forgot, we have 3 thralls and the Necromancer. Well, the Necromancer is going to run around with Ardith Smean, and that's this figure right here. It's the Death Knight who's got the fancy, no, not the skull shield. It's the one with he's got a biting blade. So we're going to give him this figure right here. And he is also going to start inside the cemetery. We want to preserve at least one of these guys, and we'll have to see which way they retreat. If they retreat off the north side of the table, along with any survivors, what we'll do is the survivors will wind up traveling on our campaign map. So remember, we're over here. Where are we? Let's get the map right side up. We're over here. So if our survivors flee off of this road, then they're going to be circling back around here. If they flee off this side, then they'll be headed back towards Castle Gallagher, which adds another element of interest. Now that we think about it, we may have wanted to put our knights on this side of the table to cut off their retreat this way, forcing them to take the long way around to Castle Gallagher. Always remembering Castle Gallagher is the ultimate objective of the campaign. With all of that out of the way, the attacker has the initiative. The battle wizard McGraham gets 2 spells. He is a wizard of light, and he is going to have, so we roll on the chart here, and we get Fa's Illumination and Shem's Burning Gaze. Those are the only 2 spells he's got. as a level 3 Wizard of the Lore of Death, Dialb Zayla gets 3 spells. We're going to re-roll the 4. 2, 4, and 5. Referring to the rule book, 2, 4, and 5 is Death Dealer, Wand of Death, and Drain Life. So we may want to use him to try to wipe out the leaders on the side of good. Except, as a necromancer, old Dialb there's got an access to the couple of special spells, one of which allows the skeletons to move a little faster. This is from the Ravening Horde supplement. The other one allows them to add D6 models if it's successfully cast on zombies and skeletons. Yeah, we want to do that. So I've got the 3 spells, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to figure out which one we're going to do. 1, 2, 3. So it'll be that 3rd spell. We're going to replace that one. Instead of the Wind of Death, which causes 2d6 strength 4 hits, he's going to have the, basically it's a summon undead spell. And that's got a range of 9 inches, at least as I play it. We're finally ready to open the festivities. Man, that's a whole lot of talking. First thing we do is declare charges. Nobody on the Empire side wants to do so. So we're going to do all movement. The Bromans go straight at them. Everybody marches forward. Remember that when you march, you move your full movement. I am playing at 15 millimeters. I have cut all of my movement in half. So if you double that for marching, then you get to move twice. The archers down here did not. They only moved once. So they moved 2 inches forward, hoping that that puts them within range of the zombies, or keeping the skeletons at bay. For their part, the skeletons kind of shuffled over an inch. You give up a quarter of your movement to turn 90 degrees, quarter of your movement to turn back. That means you can move half your distance by shuffling back and forth. They only have a movement of 2 in 15 millimeters, so it's just 1 inch, and then they can wheel and hopefully get away from the cannon, who's likely to shoot at them. But and then likewise, the dire wolves did the same thing. They shuffled over, but with a movement of 9, they actually have the ability at 4.5 inches for a regular move. If they're not marching, they can move over 2.5, and that allows them to be able to charge over here. I'm thinking we'll go ahead and expend those guys to do as much damage to the heavy hitters, these knights, as possible. And if we can just pin them in place for 1 turn, we can bring those skirmishers in and maybe hit the knights in the flank and do some more damage that way. All right. So the next phase is going to be spellcasting, and the Bromans get to go first. Our level 2 wizard, each side gets 2 dice. Our level 2 wizard gets a bonus of 2 dice, and then we get a bonus of 3 dice for the necromancer. It is the wizard's turn. So, I'm sorry, I'm doing this wrong, aren't I? So I just threw the dice down for what they're going to do. The battle wizard, Magram, can cast Magic Missile with a range of 12 inches. This is a fire spell, and the zombies are definitely within range, and he only gets to fire one of these. He's going to roll 3 dice, and he's got to do that. Now, he's got to score a 5 or better, hoping that we get that. So we got a 10. That means that, well, that's the only spell that he's likely to face. So our necromancer now says, well, I got to beat a 10 on 3. I'll go ahead and roll 4 dice. Hopefully I don't roll 2 1s. Well, he did, so he's unable to dispel that. That means that the magic missile gets off, and that is going to do D6 strength 4 hits. So we'll roll that. How many strength 4 hits? We get 6 strength 4 hits on the zombies. Hey, that's not too bad, man. The zombies have a toughness of 3. Strength 4 versus toughness 3. Let me roll first. I think that's going to be a total of 3 wounding hits. So we hit 3, that's roll a wound, and then we have to roll to save. The zombies are not wearing any armor. They do not get a save. That is going to cause 3 hits. And we have to track our casualties here because, well, we might fight another battle here at some point in the distant, not too distant future, right? That's the hope anyway. All right, that's it for the Imperial side. Now what about the boys in black? Our Death Mage says, you know, I can cast as many spells as I want. I'm going to try to summon more zombies. With a result of a 3, he is going to fail. Now, interestingly, the Necromancer, he can try as many times as he wants. So he's used 2 of his dice. All right, I'll go ahead and use my other 3 dice, looking to get at least a 5. He gets an 8, and our Imperial says, well, I got 3 dice that I can use to dispel, and I get an 8. I don't think that does the trick. That does the trick. Man, it's an identical roll. Look at that. The power of Christ compels you to stay down in your grave, you zombies. You're going to have to wait for the second coming there. That's it for the magic phase. Now we get to do some shooting. The only people that have any shooting to do are over on this side of the table. We've got archers who have moved, and they're going to be everybody that's within 12 inches. He's got a shot. So that's going to be 4 shots for these archers. Firing at 12 inches. Normally hitting on 4s because they moved, it's 5s because they're firing at the extreme range. They're only hitting on 6s. They get no hits. Now we get to do the fun part. Our cannon, and I need to specify which cannon this is. Bobby Ojimbo had a great suggestion for what we should name these cannons. Moses and Elijah. The Bromans have 2 of them, and Force Cherub here was assigned... Oh, which cannon is it? I gotta check my notes here. There we go. See, I got a whole roster of all 3 armies. That is going to be Moses. Moses speaks and says, "Let my people go." And by my people, I mean the dead people that you've raised from the dead. So we're going to take a cannon shot. Kablow. We are going to guess 9 inches. We're 9 inches away. We're going to roll a d6 to find out exactly how far that shot travels. I only use the die roll itself. Normally you use the die roll times 2, but again, we're at half scale. So I measure 13 inches to find out where this first cannon shot lands. That's 12. Here's 13. Then I have to roll this die again and hope I don't get a 6 because the ball is going to travel this many inches. 3 inches is going to put it into the 3rd rank. So I've got 1, 2, 3 skeletons that are going to get hit by the greater cannon. That hit does d6 strength 10 wounds. 3 skeletons are eliminated, as I said. Blam! And that's why the necromancer has to get them out of there as soon as possible. Because this cannon is going to just keep chewing them to pieces at that rate. If we keep rolling right. Oh, by the way, if that first die comes up of 6, that's a misfire. Oh, we got to roll on the misfire chart in the table. We're now done with missile fire. Now we have to do... I think that's it. I think the turn is over because we're so early in the preliminaries. No one is in contact. We don't have any close combat. That means that we just do our movement. And once again, the Bromans are going to move first. They're going to declare charges. They don't have any. So we'll just do our regular movement. Once again, the cannon's not going to move other than to pivot slightly to keep an alley open for firing at these skeletons. The archers have moved up, hoping they can pick off a couple more of those skeletons as well. I've taken the liberty on the undead side to... Now, I haven't moved the zombies yet. I've moved everybody else that wants to move. The zombies have a charge. They are going to charge this unit of spearmen, and things are going to get interesting. Notice our flyers have simply zipped around to the backfield. Probably should have left somebody over here to protect the rear flank of these knights from those. And we knew those were over there. Huge mistake on our part. The wolves have now gotten into position that they can at least countercharge. That may be happening on the next turn, but for now, everybody's done moving, except, as I said, these zombies. You are supposed to do compulsory moves, then you move your chargers, then the rest of the moves, but because it doesn't really matter in this case, and I wanted to show you everybody's movement before we completed this charge. Now, here's something interesting. The zombies cause fear, which forces a leadership test on the part of these spearmen. The spearmen have a leadership of, normally it would be a leadership of 7, but they are right next to Leg and Man still, so they're going to use his leadership instead. In order to stand and fight, they're going to have to succeed by rolling an 8 or less. We'll re-roll that. Well, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's going to be less than 8. Unless one of you guys thinks you can roll an 8 on a d6. They will stand their ground and fight, which is too bad. We were kind of hoping this unit of zombies would fail. They didn't. The zombies now charged a unit that gets, well, that's a melee. We're not to that phase of turn 2 yet. Let's take a look at the magic phase, which comes next. Neil McGraham has 4 dice. He says, heck with it. I'm going to go ahead and cast full magic missile at the Thrall. He gets a total score of 13. That forces 14 Diobzela to face a difficult choice. Does he roll 4 dice and hope to beat that score of 13, or whatever it was, 13 or 14? Or does he roll all 5? If he gets any snake eyes, if he gets 2 1s, the more dice, the more you get 2 1s. If you get 2 1s, you failed to block the spell. So do we roll 4 dice? Yeah, let's roll 4. With an 18, we beat it. So they've canceled each other out. Now, Dio gets to go. He's going to roll 2d6. I'm trying to summon more zombies. And with a result of a 7, he does. And our Holy Cleric of Light says, I'm blocking that. With a result of a 5, he fails. Well, I'm going to do it again, says Diobzela. He gets an 8, and we're trying to beat an 8 to block it. And with a 7, we fail. So that means 2d6 extra zombies are going to appear in this formation. There's no rule that says it can't happen to units that are locked in melee. At least not that I'm aware of. So 5 more zombies appear. That replaces the 3 that we lost. And I have to grab 2 more zombie models to add to this melee. All right. But first we have to do some pew-pew over here. We're going to fire, let's call it 10 inches again. With the result of a 5, our first shot is going to land 15 inches forward. So there's 12 to there, plus another 3 is going to drop right in the middle of the unit, and then we see how far it bounces, and with a 6, the ball just stops right where it landed. Except, so if we'd fallen short on that first, then we wouldn't get the extra bounce. Except we already hit the unit, so we're okay with that. We're going to do 2 strength 10 hits. That's going to pluck off another 2 skeletons, 5 of those down. Then our archers, how many archers have a shot here? 1, 2, we've only got 3, 4, maybe 5 archers have a shot. Are they within 12 inches? They're just barely within 12 inches. So all 5 go plink, plink, plink. They need a 6 to hit, and they're not doing so great. Come on, archers. That's it for missile. Now we get to do the melee. The zombies attack first, hitting on 4s, weapon skill of 2 versus weapon skill of 3. They're going to score a total of 2 hits. So that's roll to hit. Then we have to roll to wound. That might be 2 wounds. I'm going to walk through this slow and keep double checking. Zombies have a strength of, my zombie chart. Here we go. They have a strength of 3. Versus fellas with a toughness of, that should also be 3, which I think would be a 4, wouldn't it? Yep. Wounding on 4s, so they do 2 wounds, and then we get 2 chances to save. And we fail both of those. Kablow, kablow. Now the spearmen get to counterattack. Well, the 2 guys that are dead don't attack, but it doesn't matter because they're in the back rank. Spears can attack in 2 ranks. However, we have a champion present, and he gets an extra attack. So that would be 10, plus the extra is 11 attacks. We'll grab 1 more die here, and a weapon skill of 3 versus a weapon skill of 2 means hitting on 3s. Wow, that's a lot of hits. So we'll remove the 1s and 2s. Then zombies have a toughness of 3 versus weapon strength of 3. So we'll be wounding on 4s. Hey, stand up, you drunken. No drinking in the ranks. Oh, boy, you're going to confuse me with all these fallen over figures. We score 2 hits. With 2 wounds, I should say. Zombies do not get a save. They're not wearing any armor or anything of that nature, so the results are going to be 2 to 2, except that the Bromans have a banner, which means the Bromans lose by 1. Now, normally, that would force a morale check, but zombies don't have morale. They just lose 1 more figure for every point that they lost the battle by. And because they lost by 1, that means we just pull off 1 extra figure. And unfortunately for the Bromans, they can ill afford the casualties. Because the Bromans won, they stay locked in combat, and you can see where this becomes a war of attrition, even within the tabletop game. That functionally ends the second turn, and we have to ask a question. How many turns do we think we're going to play? And I think the answer is we're going to start rolling dice on at the end of turn. We're either going to play 5 or 6 turns. That's enough because, man, this video is already long enough. I think we may even call it quits here and then pick up the second half of the battle later in a future video, just because, 30 to 40 minutes is a really good digestible size for these videos. But I am going to play one more turn here because we're rolling along pretty good. Do we have any charges? We really don't. The only charge we might have, because we could try to charge here, but we're too far out of range. We got to bring our spears, so the Bromans don't have any charges. They can't charge behind. They're too far away from the wolves. All we can do is move up, but we don't want to get charged by the wolves, so we're going to stare them down for a little bit. That does present the specter of these guys. In fact, that may be the thing to do, is to turn 90 degrees and bring these guys 1 inch closer so that we can support. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to bring just I'm going to swap a couple of guys here so we can see which way they're facing. By turning 90 degrees, these guys can move 1.5 inches in column in that direction. And while it won't help this turn, it might help next turn. And it does present a bit of a conundrum for these bats over here. I guess we could turn a couple more of these guys. If you were playing in a game where the other guy had movement to do, that would be a good time to turn these guys. Since we're playing solo, we're just going to let that ride. No, with no charge. Well, we will bring these guys up. Well, okay, so the problem is the wolves have a 9-inch charge range. That being the case, I think we do. I think we need to set up and make sure that those wolves, either they charge or they don't, but we're going to force them to commit on this turn. Like so, and like so. And the other issue we have is an issue of crowding with these archers. If we bring these archers further forward, the skeletons are going to get out of the way. We might have been smarter to bring the archers up to here and start peppering these two guys. Since we can't do that, let's go ahead and we can wheel the archers 4 inches. I think we could. Can we change formation? Can we just give up our whole turn and just say, look, I want to turn 90 degrees like that? Let's do that, because we're going to start bringing them around this side too. We want to protect our cannon from those bats. We don't want those bats getting any funny ideas about charging our cannon. And the archers may be a way to do that. That's it for movement on that. No, it's not. We're going to bring... is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. We're going to leave our leaders back here where they're safe from harm. For his part, the necromancer now... the skeletons are going to do the same thing as before. They're going to wind up marching... at this point, we probably would have been better to turn them sideways and just race them over. In fact, let's do that. If we do that, they will have the same situation where we'll bring the banner up front, we'll bring another guy down here, and we're just going to go 4 guys. Look at my bicep. Isn't it great? And we're just going to spin them so they march 1.5 inches to right about there. And as with that other unit, they are going to be facing... to that direction. They're facing to your right as you look at the screen. And hopefully in one more turn we can get them behind these woods that will block line of sight, and we can maybe get them over here and do some damage on that side. That's going to be it for the movement. Oh no, do these guys want to charge? Yeah boy, they do. We're going to hold. We're going to take it. These guys move up to there. I'll move the rest of them in a minute. The last move for the Forces of Darkness will be a 10-inch move by these guys. Maybe we can use these skirmishers to take out the leadership team. That takes us back to shooting. We'll pivot. We still have a shot at those skeletons. We're going to call it a 12-inch shot this turn. Rolling to see how far the first shot lands. That's going to be 12 inches to the die, and then another 4 inches lands right on top. And it doesn't matter what that bounce is. We may have hit a second unit beyond, but we didn't. We're going to do D6 strength 10 hits. We're going to eliminate a whopping 1. Well, they're accurate. They're just not terribly deadly. The archers, of course, don't have any... Well, do they have a shot? No, they don't, because they did their march thing. They used their full movement to turn. So that's it for shooting. Now we get to do magic. Neil needs a 5 or better, trying to take out that necromancer. We get a total score of 12. The Vile Dark Wizard says, I can beat 12 on 4d6 without rolling 2 doubles, and he does. So he negates that spell. Then it becomes the necromancer's turn. He's got 5 dice, and I think we're going to do something a little different with him this turn. Why don't we go ahead and, since this is a battle of attrition, why don't we go ahead and cast a Drain Life on any unit within 6 inches. Well, where is he? These guys are within 6 inches. I don't think... You guys tell me, are you not allowed to cast spells into a melee? Because that's exactly what I'm doing here. And we're going to roll all 5 dice as long as we don't get 2 1s. Now, let's roll 4. As long as we don't get 2 1s. Which we do, so it doesn't get off. There's nothing to dispel. So magic has proven to be kind of pointless in this game. That's all right. The last thing we have to worry about is a couple of combats, and we're going to deal with the easy combat first. This time, the units strike in order of initiative. It's going to be 11 dice for the boys in yellow. Hitting on 3s, that was a hit. We'll eliminate all of these. Hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s. I think, well, that's fine. I might have nudged a dice or 2. Let's not stress out about it. Okay, casualty or 2 among friends, not such a big deal. Casualties on 4s, and we're going to eliminate 5 more zombies from this unit. And we got to remember, 5 casualties. For their part, the zombies are only going to roll 4 attacks. They are going to be hitting on 4s, just like last time. They get 3 hits. Let's see if they wound on 4s. They get 1 wound, and then we do have a save for the guys. And a 1 is going to be no save. So that is 1 more casualty. 3 casualties for the boys in yellow. Now in this case, it was 5 casualties to 1 casualty. The zombies lost by 4. They lose an additional 4 zombies. And we remain in combat. Still stuck there. What are you going to do? I'm going to remove this little Sabbath base now. The Bromans have won the combat, and they actually can, and I forgot to do this last turn, I think they can do it on this turn as well. So the zombies only have a frontage of 4. They have not had an opportunity to expand, but I am going to go ahead and bring these back 2 guys over to here to do the overlap thing. And I think I did that right. Tell me if I'm wrong. Removing the Sabbath base gives me more room to move these skeletons. Combat's going really well. We like that. Zombies aren't strong. They are a bit of a tar pit, but it might not go as well when the skeletons show up with their spears and we're facing similar numbers of attacks. It's also probably not going to go as well over here where we've got our dire wolves making an attack. The first thing to point out is that the Knights of the Lamb have hand weapons. I have 6 figures with hand weapons and 6 with spears. The front rank tells you what they're really armed with. They only have 5 guys in the front. There's only 10 of these knights, remember. To make matters worse, they're going up against these wolves. Now, the wolves have a frontage of 6. We're going to give them 6 attacks. It gets worse. When they charge, they get to roll an extra attack. So we're rolling 12 dice to attack. And that may mean that there aren't enough guys left over. With not enough knights survive to counterattack. With a roll like that, it's probably not going to happen. We're looking at a weapon skill of 3 versus 4. The wolves have a weapon skill of 3. The knights have a weapon skill of 4. And that means, let's see, attack 3 versus 4. We're hitting on 4s. This is probably really painful for you longtime Warhammer fans to see a guy fumble through this. They're only going to get 5 hits. So now we got to check to see our wounds. The dire wolves have a strength of 4 at least. The knights have a toughness of 3. So 4 versus 3 means they at least wound on 3s, but there's still that save coming up. Not bad. 4 wounds. Knock that out of there. And this is where it gets particularly ugly. The Knights of the Lamb have heavy weapons. They do have barding. They have heavy armor. So you add all that together, and it's going to be 5, 4, 3. I think they only miss on 1s and 2s. All right, that was pretty ugly, wasn't it? So 3 of these guys are now casualties. The Knights now get to counterattack. The red dice represent hitting on 3s, and the blue dice represent hitting on 4s. One is the horses, one is the mounts. So red dice on 3s. So the red dice don't do so good. And it's the mounts have a weapon skill of 3. So the knights score 2 hits, and their mounts score 3 hits. That's 5 hits altogether. The wolves are going to be dealing with... All right, now it's a strength 4 hit on the blue dice and a strength 3 hit on the red dice, going up against a toughness of 3. Does it make a difference? With a toughness of 3, a strength 4... So the strength 3 hits are going to be wounding on 4s. So that's not a wound. We get 4 wounds. We have a chance to save, 4 chances to save, and that's the only one that's going to save. So the wolves lose 3, but that's a tie, and that means that the fight will continue in the next round, and that might be the worst possible result for the wolves. The wolves really would have liked to have retreated off the table and been available for the next fight. That changes the character of the fight dramatically. It also ends turn 3. And with the fate of these armies hanging in the balance, well, it's probably going to be mop-up in the next 3 turns. We're going to pause it here. We're going to come back in 2 days, and we'll play out the second half of this battle. I don't like to do the 2-parters, but I also don't like to do hour-and-a-half videos. It's just too much, both for my computer and for my brain. I'm going to decompress. We'll come back. See you next time. Till then, I'm praying for you.